Hello, guys and gals, and welcome. So today I wanted to do a Starfield review. I managed to complete the game yesterday, and finally made it to New Game Plus. Had a little bit of fun playing around in New Game Plus to see what that was about. And it looks kind of fun, to be honest, and I may eventually play some New Game Plus. I might not play it on stream. I know you guys are probably tired of me playing Starfield at this point. But I'm going to tell you for a fact, I had a lot of fun with this game, and we're going to go over a review of Starfield, and we're going to talk about all the amazing features that Starfield has, what it's good at, what it's not good at, what it may or may not be. And I feel like right off the bat, what we really need to get out of the way is Starfield is kind of a misconception. Many people may have gone into this game expecting a space exploration game, and there's really not a lot of space exploration. I hate to say it, but this game is probably the least space exploration game I've ever played out of all space exploration games, and it just has to do with the fact that you really can't fly around and do anything in actual space. The extent 100% the extent of your space activities takes place right here. This is literally it. This is your space activities. Usually around a planet or moon or something, you don't actually get to fly to a planet. You don't actually get to fly to a moon. You don't get to do much of anything in terms of any of that kind of stuff. The only thing you really get to do is just simply fly around next to planets. Now you can take people's stuff, like for instance, if I wanted to be a pirate, I could go ahead and charge up my particle cannons, and I could attack the crap out of this guy. First off, I gotta take out his shields and take out his grav drive. He might not want me to do any of that though, so he's probably gonna try and jump away. Now, the best thing for you to do is use EM cannons, and you can do things like take out their lasers. You fire enough, you could take out their grav drive. And then eventually, if you take out their engines, which is the most important thing here, if you don't take out their engines, you can't actually board them. You can actually board enemy vessels and things like that, which is pretty cool within this game. The EM cannons are great for taking out engines, by the way. If you want to board a lot of vessels, I would definitely recommend taking the EM cannons. That's your best bet. Then once you get your EM cannons, you take out their engines, and you can board their vessel, and you can do whatever it is you want to do. Maybe you want to be evil and you want to take over ships and steal stuff. Maybe you want to, I don't know what it is you want to do, but you can do it, and you can totally board ships. But the thing is that the majority of the ship, if not all of what's going on, takes place in, not space. Takes place on planets, takes place on space stations, takes place inside of ships, takes place, down deep underneath the ground, whatever you may have you. And it's just generally not something that is like a space exploration game. In most kind of space exploration games, what you would expect is being able to, fly directly to a moon. Fly directly to it. Maybe even fly into the star, if that's what you want to do. Maybe if you want to fly directly into the star, just burn your ship up. You could totally even do that. But not in this game. If you want to fly into a star, good luck. You're probably going to need a mod for that. And that's just how it works. Like, for instance, I can steal this guy's ship, and I can totally steal it. There you go. That's my ship now. Yep, my ship. Andrea is angry with you. This is a Freestar carry-all that I just stole from whatever. I'm not actually gonna to stick with this, but I think it's fun to play around with this kind of stuff and take a look at the ships. This one in particular is, it's all right, I guess. It's got some Class B modules. Looks like it's a Class B ship overall. So Class B ships are kind of a whole thing. There's different classifications of ships. My current ship that I'm running right now is one that I designed myself, called GGT, and that's a Class C ship with some pretty nice modules, really nice guns, EM cannons, all sorts of interesting things. I'm kind of disappointed that I only really get to use it here, but that's neither here nor there. the fact of the matter is that you don't always get exactly what you want when it comes to this game. And I think there's a little bit of a misunderstanding, I think, or misrepresentation in the way that the game is presented. It is very much so a kind of like Fallout 4, Skyrim-ish kind of a game, more so than it is a space game. Yes, space is involved. Yes, you do have a ship. And yes, there are some space battles that happen occasionally. But for the most part, it's not really like a space game. And there's really nothing else you can say other than that. If I wanted to point my ship at this planet and fly directly at this planet and crash my ship into this planet, I could not do it. It has been done. It has been tested. You cannot reach the planet, and even if you do reach the planet, you just simply fly inside the planet, which has got to be the silliest thing. If I wanted to fly toward the sun, so if I just found the sun and I just wanted to fly toward the sun, you cannot fly into the sun. You cannot reach the sun. It's not possible. The fact of the matter is that when it comes to these, the actual space part of this game, it's really rather lackluster. There's not as much space stuff to do as I would have liked. You can do some things like fight pirates. You can be you can take over other vessels if you happen to find one. So if there is a friendly vessel and you want to be a pirate, you can totally do that sort of a thing. You can, of course, interact with occasional things that happen while you are in outer space. So when you jump from planet to planet, for instance, like for instance, if I jump from this planet over to this moon over here, a specific event could happen around the moon. Like somebody may request my help. Grandma might showed up. There's a guy who flies around singing. There's people who request help. There's pirates that try to attack you. There's various activities which can happen at the planets. But for the most part, there's really not a whole lot of random things that occur, just as if you're flying around a solar system or something. You've got to choose all the little locations that you go to. And a lot of the times when you go to a planet, there's a whole lot of nothing. You can shoot asteroids, and when you shoot asteroids, you will get sometimes you'll get resources that will pop out of the asteroids. Like for instance, here's a mineral deposit, and you can check the mineral deposit. There's iron in there, nothing really too fancy. And of course, when you destroy ships, you can loot the stuff from inside the ship. I think the most fun thing to do while you're in space, though, is literally to disable the enemy ship and dock and basically get on their ship and, actually steal their stuff and then steal their ship, too, and take that back to your base. It's really too bad, though, however, that stealing a ship basically gets you nothing because they cost so much to register. So let me see. I think I actually have a ship that I haven't registered. So let me go ahead and take you to one of my star bases here real quick. And I'm going to show you what I mean by too expensive to register. So I have a ship that I stole. It's a Mark III version of a ship. I stole from like a level 75 pirate. Has some really nice modules on it. Some of them are even better than mine. They seem to be experimental versions of those modules. But the value that the ship has is actually very specific, right? So if I go to buy ships and then I go to sell ships, you'll see that this ship, the UC Navy A cargo ship, is worth $88,079. All right. I can register the ship because I stole the ship. I have to register it. And when I register it, it costs me 74,074 credits. It is almost exactly, I think it's like 84% of the value of the ship, which means that no matter what ship you have, no matter how valuable the ship is, they're going to take the majority of the value of the ship in registration fee costs to actually register the ship. And then you can sell the ship. You can sell it, but look, it only sells for $88,000. It cost me $74,000 to register it and $88,000 to sell it, which means I have a net profit of what, like $10K. It's not even worth stealing and selling chips for the amount of money that you get for them, which is actually kind of silly and especially very sad considering this is actually a very good ship. It has some very good modules on it, like the reactor on this ship is actually better than the reactor that's on my main ship. It's an SF-40 sheared flow, and the one that's on my main ship is a Fusor DC-402 with 34 power generated, which is a 6 lower power generation than the other reactor. And that ship also has a bunch of experimental modules on it and all sorts of other things. But, you know, if I steal it, bring it back and sell it, it's worth, well, basically nothing. Let's talk about shipbuilding for a second. I do have an entire video on shipbuilding, so I'm not going to delve too much into this, but I have done entire streams where I did nothing but build ships, and I think that the shipbuilding in this game is absolutely amazing. This is one of the ships that I've built called the GGT. This is another one of the ships that I built called the Chunks. This is another ship that I built called the Defiant, and so forth and so on, and it's just so fun to go through and build these ships and actually go over all the modules. I would highly recommend that if you're interested in the shipbuilding portion, you check out my shipbuilding video, because I have literally almost like an hour-and-a-half long video going over all the shipbuilding processes, where you find the special modules, what habitation modules are worth using, what, you know, like you have to do to get your ship into B class and C class, how you make a lot of that stuff work, which weapons are the best ones to use, and so forth and so on. And definitely check that out. Outpost building is very fun. As you can clearly see here, I have a rather large outpost, and I had a lot of fun building and having fun creating multiple outposts, by the way. I actually have multiple outposts throughout the universe at this point. I have my main outpost right here, which I call Dujankery, but I also have a gold copper water outpost right here, which I use for mining. I have several other outposts spread throughout the system, including ones that are used for aluminum. I have one on the moon of Rocklock, which is my helium-3 mine. I have another one on the moon of Boron, which is my aluminum slash beryllium mine. And I have even more. I've got tungsten and nickel. I've got all sorts of titanium mines and things like that, and they ship things back to my main outpost. And honestly, it is really rewarding to have access to all those materials, set everything up, get the outpost supply lines set up, and then before you know it, I have literally almost infinite resources to utilize at my disposal. If you take a look at my my outpost up here, if I go to build, say, something simple like an iron extractor, you'll see I have 3,447 aluminum, 5,690 iron, 261 tungsten, and then going through the list, I've got tons of materials stored up, like 580 cobalt, 179 nickel, tons and tons of resources, like 711 copper, and so forth and so on, that are just sitting around waiting for me to use at a moment's notice. And the reason why I have so many resources is so I can just continually keep building and building and building whatever it is I want to build. A lot of these outposts can get really, really awesome. I have been able to create everything from automated mines to habitation modules to basically even just simply on one place where there was terramorphs, I just put down a habitation module and surrounded it with frickin' turrets and security robots and had them fighting terramorphs, which I thought was pretty funny. They're extremely useful too. Obviously, you can put all sorts of interesting modules inside your bases. Like, for instance, you can put the spacesuits, the workbenches, the research labs, the weapon workbenches, cooking stations, industrial workbenches, pharmaceutical base, mannequins, beds, all sorts of things, and make them extremely useful. Another interesting thing, though, that you can do is the landing pad, which allows you to do shipbuilding. One quick caveat is that don't build your ships on the landing pad from your outpost. I actually found this out the hard way myself, is that the landing pad on the Outpost is actually the worst place to build your ship because it has access to the least number of modules available. If you want to build a ship, I would recommend that you go to the specific star yards that are for those specific companies. Like, for instance, if you really enjoy the Nova Galactic parts, the Deimos parts, the Stroud Eklund parts, I recommend you go directly to those manufacturers because they have access to more modules and more parts at the specific manufacturer areas than the individual areas do. So where this particular area, my landing strip, only has access to generic parts that are available all over the place. But if you go to the manufacturer, you can get access to all of the parts that they have available, which is pretty cool in terms of like what you can do to make your ship. And you may notice that it's also tied to level as well, and this is also kind of a negative point in my book, is that everything seems to be tied to everything else in terms of skills, and this is something that I really want to talk about, and it's just something that needs to be said. So everything, for some reason or another, seems to be locked behind a skill, a feature of some kind, whether it's the level of your character, the progression of a quest, or one of the skills in the skill tree. There are so many things that you cannot do unless you have the appropriate skill to do it, and it is like 95% of the game is locked behind skills. So if you're playing this game for the first time and you don't understand why you don't have access to everything, it's probably because you don't have a point in the skill. The jetpack, for instance, can't be used unless you have a point in the jetpack skill. You cannot have access to Class B or Class C ships unless you level up piloting. You cannot get access to most of the really nice ship modules unless you rank up your starship design to rank 4. You cannot get access to most of the outpost modules unless you rank up your outpost engineering to rank 4. You cannot get access to most of the good spacesuit modules unless you upgrade your spacesuit modding. You cannot get access to most of the good weapon engineering stuff unless you access your weapon engineering. Some of the outpost modules require botany, planetary habitation, special projects, and all sorts of other weird things. There are tons of little things that are locked, like, for instance, being able to scan planets, find resources in outer space, all sorts of interesting things that comes with scanning that is locked if you don't have access to scanning. And it wouldn't be so bad if it was just one or two things, but let me tell you that it is almost everything in the game is locked behind something or other, and it is impossible to get access to unless you have the appropriate ability or skill. Even crew, like for instance, if you want to have a really large crew on your ship, well, you're going to need to go down the social tree, and you need to get access to ship command, which gives you the ability to have more active crew members. I mean, it's kind of crazy how many ridiculous things in the game are just locked behind specific skills or actions or things that need to be done. And that's why I'm talking about the starship design, which, number one, a lot of the modules are locked behind level. Level 100 apparently locks all the modules within the game, but until you're level 100, you don't have access to all of the starship modules. Even if you have level 4 piloting and level 4 starship design, you will still not get access to all of the starship modules until you are level 100. Another very important thing is that you have to be at the correct shipyards to get access to some of the parts, because if you're not at the correct shipyards, you don't get access to the correct parts that way either. Just another way that everything is locked behind everything else. And going over my list here, let's move on to the next topic. I really had a lot of fun researching the planets and the alien creatures, but after a little while, most of the planets just kind of felt very samey. Everything just kind of felt the same. You go to one planet, and it's a rocky, barren wasteland, and you go to another planet, and it's a rocky, barren wasteland, and then you go to another planet, and it's a rocky, barren wasteland, and they're all kind of the same rocky, barren wasteland. No real difference between any of it, to be perfectly honest. But then you find your first, like flora planet with lots of little aliens on it, right? And you're kind of excited because there's aliens all over the place. And, you're like, okay, this is the first cool, like living planet where there's actual biological organisms. Well, it's kind of odd, but they're kind of all the same. Every single one of them is pretty much just the same number of organisms. There's like a predator, like a prey animal, and like a little tiny critter, and then and even though they are kind of different, they're all in the same classifications, and they all kind of resemble the same things. And even though some of the plants and stuff have different graphics and some of the animals have different graphics, you start to get a feeling that they're really just kind of all the same. One is a hunting animal, which is a predator, and every single planet seems to have a hunting animal. And then you find something that is a herding animal, and that one you find a bunch of those, like I have herding animals over here. And then eventually you come across animals that are, something different. But they tend to be kind of all the same in terms of like what they're doing. These little critters right here, I'm not sure if they've been killed by, looks like my robots or something, I guess. I guess they got murdered. Which is another thing that we kind of need to talk about. The animals, for some reason or another, are just... The NPCs love to kill the animals, even if they're completely harmless. If the animal comes within range of anything, they will just automatically attack and kill them. Now, some of these animals are very deadly. Like these shard hoppers right here will attack and kill you. They love to attack and kill you. That's what they do. But the herding animals, like for instance these, tend to kind of avoid attacking you, although these have been killed by the hunting animals. So this is just one of the hunting animals. And I don't know, all the planets kind of feel really samey, and eventually it gets to the point where you're just like, okay, well this planet is pretty much the same as all the other planets, and that planet's the same as all these other planets, and there's really not a big difference between them. There's really not a lot more to say about that. It definitely, at a certain point when you start exploring, you really kind of feel like that they didn't really put a lot of effort into differentiating the planets from each other. Now, I understand logically that the majority of the planets out there would be barren rocks, which is perfectly fine. But when you do eventually find a, Menshara class planet or whatever, an M class planet, if we're talking about Star Trek, I would expect them to put a little bit of effort into the M class planets and make them into more than just simply nothing. I don't know. They kind of feel like nothing. The story. The story is fun and engaging. I definitely have had a lot of fun going through the story. I just recently beat the game the other night, and I really felt like they put a lot of thought into the story. And collecting the relics, and eventually when you get the powers and all the other things that go on during the story, I did find the story to be very engaging. There was a lot of thought-provoking elements of the story, which had me thinking and scratching my head and kind of conversing with the crowd on what was going on, which should kind of point out to you that yes, the story is very nice. It's a very nice story. There's also a lot of good sub stories within the main quest. Like for instance, there's a whole sub story where you have to go and invade the Crimson Fleet, and you have to like pretend to be a bad guy and whatnot, and fool the bad guys into thinking you're one of them, and in the process you end up having a lot of really cool things happen, do a lot of really cool missions, going on to this little ice planet, into a prison, and all sorts of... I mean, honestly, that was one of the more fun quests within the game, and it wasn't even the main quest. The quests in the game are very good. The story of the quest is very good. Even the companions are very good. But the actual exploration and, like, planets as part of it is not as great. If I were to put it as the way I could think as simply as possible, when you play Fallout or you play Skyrim or whatever, you have a lot of fun enjoying the game itself, right? Well, that part, the part that would be a Fallout game, the part that would be a Skyrim game, is immaculately well done. But the part that is a space exploration game, the part that would be new to a Fallout game, like if Fallout had space exploration in it, if it was just like jerry-rigged in. That's how it kind of feels. It feels like the space exploration part isn't really done as well as it should have been done, and they could do better. As well as the space combat isn't really done as well as it should have been done, and they could do better. The space combat, don't get me wrong, is actually kind of fun, but it also very rarely happens, and usually when it does happen, there's also friendlies there to help you out a lot of the time, unless you're outside of any kind of friendly space. And so most of the time, even when you do have combat happen, you have help, and it's not really all that difficult. I mean, I had to go to some really high-level areas to have a challenge when it came to the space combat. And, I mean, I'm talking like, I was like level 40, and the enemies that I was fighting were like level 75 plus and so forth, which was kind of crazy. Let's move on to the next one here. Way too many loading screens. I can't really do anything other than show you the loading screens. I think that's the best way to talk about the loading screens, is show you all the 8 million loading screens. So let's say I'm here on the planet and I want to go somewhere, right? Okay, so first I got to get on the ship, right? Board the ship. Little loading screen right here to get onto the ship. Then I got to find my my cockpit, right? Got to get in my cockpit. Let's get in the cockpit. Gotta find it. Get in the cockpit. There's a loading screen to get into the cockpit. Alright, so then I want to take off into outer space. Now there's a loading screen to get into outer space. Alright, so now I'm finally in outer space and I want to travel to another planet. So let's go do a grab jump real quick, and let's travel to the Sol system. Alright, we're gonna travel to the Sol system, and I want to go to the Deimos Star Yard. So let's jump to the Deimos Star Yard. I got another little load screen, right? I gotta sit here and I gotta wait for the grav drive. If I don't have energy on my grav drive, I need to put energy to the grav drive. So I gotta wait for the grav drive to activate. Little load screen for my grav drive.
Must have been a good jump. We're still in one piece.
Yay! So now I'm at the Star Yard, right? Okay, so let me go ahead and I want to get into the Star Yard. So we're going to get as close to the Star Yard as we can. And I'm going to activate docking procedures. And now we have a loading screen to dock to the ship. Yay! Okay, now we want to board the ship. So now we have another loading screen to board the ship. And now we're finally on the ship. How many load screens was that in between taking off? And it's excessive. It's extremely excessive, and it's completely unnecessary. I don't understand why it has to be this way, but it's just absolutely stupid. There's so many load screens. There's so many different little things that happen, and I understand thematically having some of those things probably seemed pretty cool when they were in development, but at a certain point it gets completely redundant to the point where it starts to just waste your time. Just absolutely waste your time. Now there are tricks that you can use to avoid some of these load screens, and I'd like to show you one. So if I wanted to travel, say, I don't know, to another solar system or whatever, I could skip most of those load screens by going straight to the navigation panel, opening up the star map, going to the planet that I want to go to, choosing the location that I want to go to, and going directly to it. But look what happens. If I try and go to this place, it says you're carrying too much and cannot fast travel. And this brings me to my next point, which is the inventories in the game seem very small for both the player, the ship, and the outposts. I don't know who designed the inventory system in this game, the weight of the items. how much things, how much inventory space you have as a personal character, but you can barely carry your own equipment, and that's about it. Like, if you carry anything other than your own equipment, you're pretty much screwed. And that trick that I showed you of being able to avoid all the load screens requires that you stay under your inventory limit. So if you're over your inventory limit, even by 1.01 of a weight, it will not let you fast travel. And so you have to go through all of the doojanks. You got to go through all of the load screens, which is just a pain in the butt. Now, sometimes you can skip some of them. Like, for instance, with this one, if I use the R key, I can skip straight to the cockpit, so I just get one load screen to the cockpit instead of one load screen in and another load screen out. But I still have to undock the ship, which means I still get that load screen as well. And it's just excessive. It's ridiculously excessive, the number of load screens and the amount of sheer time that they waste from you just on the regular basis, just wasting horrible large amounts of your time, which is insane. Another thing that we need to talk about is bad guys being very weak. So I don't know if it's because my character is high level or what, but even when I came across monsters or players or NPCs that were higher level than me, I often felt like I was just absolutely destroying everything. Even when I would go to high level zones, if I go way out here on the edges of the fringe of the system, I can find places that are, say, level 70. We've got this level 70 Vern, right? So let's jump over here to the level 70 Vern, and let's see if we can find a ship. I'm currently level 50, by the way. My ship is something that I created, and this is something that I'll definitely tell you right now. Make your own ship, okay? Because the ships that they sell you are pretty much garbage. Alright, so let's go ahead, full power to shields. Let's pull power from the engines. Bring up our electromagnetic cannons. And what we're going to do is we're going to very quickly jump in between these planets because the encounters are basically static and they happen over and over again. It just depends on what kind of dice roll you get when you land on the planet, right? So we're in a dangerous star system. We're at the fringes of the galaxy. Let's see if we get attacked by pirates. Sometimes the pirates are already here, and sometimes the pirates will attack us as we jump. But as we're jumping, we will... I'll continue the review. And when we finally do get an attack, then I will stop and we'll talk about the weakness of the bad guys in this game. So here we go. Let me jump to the next one. The next topic that I have is followers are really stupid in the game. They tend to attack things they shouldn't attack. They get stuck on stuff. They walk in front of you all the time. Even when you're firing your gun, you can be actively firing a minigun and they will step right in front of you and just be like, oh, why are you shooting me? That's rude. Why would you shoot me with your minigun? They'd be like, dude, you literally just leaped in front of me like a bodyguard off a Bodyguard movie. How am I supposed to prevent you from leaping in front of me and getting yourself killed? Money seems very oddly valued in this game. I can't quite put my finger on what the hell is wrong with this game in terms of the money, the value of the money. But dear God, the value of the money in this game is so skewed and off that I can't quite put my finger on exactly what the hell's going on. You can have a starship that's worth 400,000 credits. And then somebody will ask you for a bribe, right? And you're like, oh man, how much does he want? Like 40,000 credits? Like 50,000 credits? Man, I don't want to give up that much money. And then they'll ask for like 1,000 credit bribe. And you're like, 1,000 credits? Like, I poop 1,000 credits. Like, I go to the bathroom and 1,000 credits come out of my anus. Like, what? Well, sure, here, have 1,000 credits. What is that like? What is that going to buy you, a coffee? And then later on in the game, you'll get a reward from somebody, and they'll give you, like, a 5,000 credit reward. And you're like... Really? 5,000 credits? I did all that for 5,000 credits. Like, I could literally make 5,000 credits every single time I go to a vendor. It's actually kind of insane, the number of credits that you can make in this game just simply doing pretty much mundane tasks like selling ores and crafting things and stuff. And there's some sort of disconnect between the value of items in the vendors, how much the NPCs think is valuable, and how much you think is valuable. Because most of the time the NPCs are asking for bribes and they're asking for basically nothing. And you're like, well, okay, I don't care about that much money. That's absolutely stupid. Who cares? There's these weird powers in the game. So let's move on to powers. The powers in the game are kind of meh. I played around with a lot of these powers, and I actually have a lot more than this now. I went and got like a trillion of them. Actually, no, let's not load the game just yet. I was hoping to get at least one encounter here before I hopped off of this ship. You know, I know a system where there's an encounter like every single time. It's a star system called Serpentis. Once you find one of these places that has an encounter, it like happens almost every single time. Serpentis 4. So let's go to Serpentis 4 real quick. We got to put a little bit of power to the grav drive, otherwise it's not going to jump us. Alright, so if we get lucky, there should be an encounter here on one of these relatively quickly. There we go. Alright, so this is a level 24 in a 75 zone. I'm gonna absolutely annihilate this guy from existence. About the only cool thing that they can do is prevent my lock-ons, which is... yeah. Alright, then we have a 52, and we've got a 16. So this level 16 is going to get annihilated in a matter of seconds. As you can see, it's not like I'm even struggling here whatsoever. And this level 52, I could just let him shoot at me for a while, and it wouldn't even matter. And you know what I'm going to do? I'm going to capture his ship. So let's go ahead and bring his engines down. So his engines are offline, and we're just going to go ahead and dock with his ship. And this is a good way to show you the other side of the equation, which is the NPCs, not just the ships, but also the NPCs are very weak. So we're going to hop on this ship, and I'm going to pull out one of my guns. Let's not use the minigun because that's just unfair. Let's use the laser shotgun. So this is a laser shotgun. One shot. One shot. Almost one shot. And they're all dead. And granted, these guys were low level, but this is a level 50 some odd ship, and inside the 50 some odd ship is a bunch of little lowbie, like nothing characters that literally take no damage. And even when you do come across that one guy that's the higher level, like this guy is 44, I mean, what did it take me? A couple shots? I mean, okay. I guess. I mean, I can pretty much walk up to most of these like enemies, and I can just melee them to death. That level 46 just got one-shotted. I'm not even using like a fancy legendary weapon right now. This weapon that I'm using is a white weapon, has no modifiers on it. It does have mods on it, but it's just a white weapon. It's not one of my legendary weapons, which does a hell of a lot more damage. This poor guy right here. Anybody else still alive on this ship? We're just going to take your whole ship. I don't even care. We're just going to steal it, and we're going to bring it back, and you guys are going to cry about it because we stole your ship. Actually, you're not going to cry about anything because you're dead, aren't you? But as you can see, no challenge whatsoever. And this is just par for the course. It feels like every single combat encounter with most NPCs, for the most part, Completely easy. 100% way too easy than it should be. And then here I'm going to steal their ship. Now I have access to their ship. I can take their ship back and take a look at it. I've been meaning to steal this this ship and take a look at how it was built, because I've always interested in the kind of the shipbuilding techniques that they use. So as you can see here, the grav drives are currently offline on this ship. I was able to break their engines too, so it looks like that's done. Let's see if we can put any power to their grav drives whatsoever. Doesn't look like it. So it looks like this thing's pretty much dead in space. I do want to look at it though, so let's take a look at it. So we can go over here and we can take a look at the ship. This is a Varun Vigil 3. It's kind of an interesting design, I guess. Looks like it uses a 36 grav drive. It's got 890 shields. It's got the SA550 engines, but only 2 of them. It's running auto cannons, and it has the 75 MeV auto neutron turret. 2 of them. The main reactor is a 28 reactor, so it's not even really that good of a ship. It's not even really that valuable of a ship, to be honest. It's probably only worth, like, I don't even know. Oh, 214,000 is how much the ship is worth. For as an example, this ship right here is 431,000. My GGT is worth 398,000. I mean, it's interesting capturing the vessels, but it's not always lucrative. In fact, most of the time you just don't really get much money for it. I'm going to go ahead and just steal my ship back. Alright, so let's go take a look at the powers real quick. There's no reason to stay here anymore. Let's go to my Reborn account, where I have all the powers. And we're going to take a look at these powers and talk about why they're not really all that amazing. Oh look, loading screen! Alright, so here's my boy here. Let's just go ahead and land on one of these planets. It doesn't matter where. We just need to go test out our powers. Now, when it comes to powers, there are some interesting ones. There's a couple that are actually pretty interesting. One of the main ones that I used pretty much for the entire game is the personal atmosphere. And the personal atmosphere basically just gives you access to a little bubble of your own space, like air space, which is actually really cool. That one is probably my favorite so far, just simply because it allows me to run further and to get more out of the well, I don't really know how to put it other than just to get more out of, just in general, not having to worry about always having to have oxygen and CO2 managed. As you can see, at any time I can just press the Z key, give myself my own little personal atmosphere for a minute full of oxygen, which I can then utilize to my advantage, which is great. Where is the door? There it is. I always forget where the door is because on this ship it's like hidden. Alright, so if we go out here and I pull up my list of powers here, we have the personal atmosphere, which is probably one of the best powers in the game. We also have the phased time, which allows you to slow down the world and those around you, which would be useful if combat was difficult. As we just talked about, combat isn't really that difficult, and slowing down time for combat doesn't even really seem necessary. Precognition, which is bend time and glimpse the future, seeing the path that someone will walk and the words that they may say. This one is kind of interesting. It's mildly useful if you're doing like stealth missions. Reactive shield forms a shield of pure cosmic light that can weaken and even reflect enemy projectiles, which again would be more useful if the combat was actually difficult. Sense star stuff, which is basically just a sort of form of detect life from Skyrim. It's basically the same thing as detect life. So when you utilize it, it basically just allows you to see any life forms that might be around, if there are any life forms, and it kind of highlights them for you. Right now, there's no life forms around, so nothing's highlighted. Go figure. We also have the solar flare, which is supposed to be like fireball, but doesn't really do the same what you think. Shoots off a ball of plasma at a target, which is kind of interesting when I first read it, but I don't really like how it looks. Like, for a ball of plasma, it certainly looks really kind of boring. I mean, I would expect like an explosion or something. I don't know. I didn't expect that. I guess I didn't expect that. It does a decent amount of damage to enemies, but you also got to hit them with it. Sunless space introduces your enemies to a cold of space, freezing them in their tracks. So basically, it's like a frost ability. So when you utilize it, it actually kind of freezes that particular space, making it very, very cold. Let's see if we can utilize it on this poor little unsuspecting animal over here. As you can see, it's kind of like just an ice blast, right? Turn them to ice, which of course now they're angry at me. There are some other interesting abilities in here, like Supernova, which has it's like a big blast that emanates out from you in an AoE circle and does damage to everything nearby. I mean, I don't know if it would be really all that useful unless you were fighting a bunch of little tiny monsters that you didn't want to have to attack all at once. But it does look kind of cool when it goes off, and you know, it's all right looking, I guess. A lot of these things require a lot of the power, like the juice, so you really can't utilize them all that quickly. And that's the Supernova ability, as you can see. That one's okay, I guess. There's also Void Form, which channels the very darkness of space, rendering yourself nearly invisible, so just invisibility. Particle Beam emits a powerful ray of cosmic energy, dealing terrifying damage to a single target. And then we've got Eternal Harvest. What has blossomed will bloom once more, ripe for the picking. This allows you to make a plant essentially bloom again, so you can harvest it again. It's a botany thing. Grav Dash seemed kind of cool when I first saw it, but then I tried to use it, and it was like, I mean, okay, it's not really all that amazing. It doesn't really cost a lot of power. It's only like 15 power as opposed to a lot of the others. But for the most part, it doesn't really seem all that amazing. I was kind of disappointed in the Grav Dash as well. The Gravity Wave kind of seemed like a Fus Roda, but it doesn't really push anybody that far. The Gravity Well, general focal point crushing gravity that draws anyone caught in its field. This one is kind of cool because it basically just creates this gravity well, drawing everything in. And let me see if I can find some actual, like, unsuspecting victims to show you the gravity well for. That's right, I said unsuspecting victims. There's some unsuspecting victims over there. Poor guy. Poor guy. I'm sorry. You lived, you lived. There's also Inner Demon, which allows you to kind of like pull a friendly duplicate of an unfriendly foe. Life Force, transfer the very life force of an enemy, harming them while healing yourself. It's basically stealing life from somebody. Moon Form, which is kind of interesting, basically just turns you to stone and makes you unmovable, which I'm not sure exactly how useful that is. We also have Anti-Gravity Field, which makes a anti-gravity field basically wherever you put it. It kind of makes things float and stuff. I mean, like, for instance, this guy that's running away from me right now, I mean, I could probably put this on him, for instance, and even though he's running away from me, he would get stuck in the anti-gravity field and start floating, and he can't go anywhere, of course, because there's no gravity and no way to push himself. So he just starts floating up in the air like that. But he got out of the anti-gravity field. That's one of the kind of the downsides of it, is it's not really all that big. It's kind of a small anti-gravity field. I don't even understand why it's so tiny. I feel like it should be a little bit bigger. We've got the Create Vacuum, which sounds interesting. Basically removes all the oxygen from an area at your command. Creator's Piece is a disarm. It's a little strange. It basically causes the person to drop their weapon temporarily. Earthbound is really quite interesting. So let's say you're on a planet, like for instance this one, that has 0.91 gravity. Maybe you're on a planet that has really heavy gravity, or you're a planet that has really light gravity. Maybe you just want to have regular gravity. Basically, what the skill does is it just converts the gravity to Earth's gravity. So any planet that you're on, doesn't matter what planet you're on, if you use the ability, it will then be 1 gravity, which is the gravity of Earth. So you'll be on normal Earth gravity planet. I'm not sure exactly how long the power lasts for. It's probably not even really that long. Look, it's already back to 0.91. So I'm not really sure what that's about, other than I guess making just the gravity normal. Elemental Pull. This one is probably one of the cooler ones. It basically just lets you pull elements from around you. So, like, for instance, if I'm running along here and let's say I see some elements that I would like to mine. So, not sure if there's any actual elements around here. I haven't seen any. You know, like iron, copper, you know, cobalt, uranium, plutonium, all that other bull crap. There could be 100 different elements. Let's see. Looks like there's some over here. So we got some siliconates. We've got some lead. So if we use our power over here near these things, see, lead has been added. So it just automatically mines any of the minerals that you happen to be nearby, giving them to you, which is kind of cool. I mean, especially if you were in an area where you had a whole bunch of minerals and you were trying to mine everything really quickly, it could be kind of interesting to play around with that kind of stuff, but alas. And then we've got alien reanimation, which allows you to reanimate an alien as a friend, which is kind of an interesting one. So, like, for instance, earlier there were some bad aliens over here, right? So, you know, see if I can find them again. Where'd the bad aliens go? Oh, I saw him around here somewhere. Yeah, there's one. A hunting tusk frog. So we kill him, right? Now he's dead. He's a mean alien and he's dead. And now we can resurrect him, bring him back to life, and now he fights for us. Now he's a good alien and he fights for the good side. Come on, good alien, let's go. I think he even follows me. See? We got a good alien. I mean, I guess this could be interesting, especially if you resurrect a terramorph. I don't know. All in all, though, when I went through these powers, and the one that's missing right here is to create a duplicate of yourself, which would be kind of useful. There's very few of them that are actually all that amazing in terms of what they do. And I'm actually kind of surprised with how many powers they have, how few of them are actually all that interesting. They're actually all kind of meh. And I know I could have just said they're all kind of meh, but I felt like showing you them and then going, hey, aren't these kind of meh, is a little bit better way of doing it. And let's talk a little bit about the ship parts not being transferable. I don't know why, but despite the fact that you can have multiple ships, I can't transfer any of my parts from my ships to other ships, which is really freaking weird, and I don't know why. So no matter what, if you have like a really cool part on one ship and you'd like to transfer it to another, you're screwed. If you take a part off your ship, it's sold immediately at a huge loss, which is really terrible. You should be able to bank the parts and utilize them on other ships, but instead what it does is it just sells them for like 90% of the cost reduction. So if it was worth 100,000, you're going to get like 10k for it, and there's no other option, which is just terrible, and it wastes your money ridiculously. Crashing. I've only crashed about 3 times total in hundreds of hours of playtime. And I feel like I should probably at this point show you guys like all my playtime. So let me just pull this up real quick. So here's my list of videos for Starfield. As you can see, I've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. We got what? 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11. All the way up to episode 13. I've got 13 different episodes, and each one of them is anywhere between 12 hours. It looks like minimum 5 hours to 12 hours, which is a lot of hours. I don't know exactly how much that would be, but it's a lot. And I've only crashed about 3 times total, so I was actually pretty surprised about that. There are some really crappy, odd FPS drops when you switch weapons and stuff like that. I don't know exactly why, but when I switch between weapons, it will just like have these really horrible load drops. Let me pull up an earlier save so I can bring up my massive weapon collection. But every single time I switch between my weapons, there's just this horrible FPS drop that happens. And I don't know exactly what causes it. It also happens sometimes when you're looking at cargo containers and other such things. I think it has something to do with accessing the actual inventory. But for instance, you can see I can move my mouse around and the FPS is fairly smooth, right? But if I press a button to swap my weapon, you watch. Notice all the frame skipping that's happening now. It's just like ka-chunking every single time I switch a weapon. It just has like a heart attack and it doesn't want to display the frames anymore. There's a lot of little things like this in the game that for some reason or another, like it just has these horrible frame dips at really odd times. And I don't exactly know what the hell causes it. I also got stuck in some very odd places and would sometimes fall through the world. I had to use TCL to get out of some of these places. I actually got stuck really badly. And if I hadn't used TCL, which is a command that allows you to turn collision off so that you can walk through walls and things like that, I probably would have had a corrupted save, which is basically where I was stuck in a position where I couldn't get out of it, and the furthest back save that I could go to was too far away, so I'd lose tons of progress. I had several times where I had corrupted saves, and there was really nothing I could do about it. It's pretty sad. Speaking of beautiful vistas, let's talk about that for a second. There were many times when I was playing Starfield where I just kind of had to stop and just look at the beautiful, like, landscape, the sun coming up or the moon coming up over the thing, or a Jupiter-like planet visible in the background on a sea of stars in the Milky Way. I mean, it was absolutely crazy sometimes that literally I had no choice other than to stop everything that I was doing and just look. Some of the vistas and things that were created with this game, even if it was just accidental or a quirk of fate of being in the right place at the right time, were just absolutely amazing to see. No ground vehicles. Despite the fact that much of this game involves traversing across planets, and also the inventory system is very small, and also the oxygen system is constantly running out because you're constantly overweight, and you can't fast travel anywhere because you're constantly overweight because you're a freaking raccoon. There's no ground vehicles at all, and it was confirmed by the game devs this was a deliberate choice. And I gotta tell you, as someone who has played many, many hours of this game, I really wish there was a ground vehicle of some type. I don't know, a motorbike, a hoverboard, some freaking roller skates. Give me a freaking bicycle. They say that the jetpack is in the game, but the jetpack doesn't really make you travel faster. It really doesn't. You know, the jetpack lets you go up. It doesn't really let you travel faster across terrain. Maybe if they modified the jetpack a little bit so that it could help you travel faster across terrain. But I felt like the majority of my freaking life playing this game was running from place to place because, oh dear Lord Jesus, it was just you're on a whole planet. This is a whole freaking planet, okay? Like you've got so much to explore on these planets, and I don't know what they were thinking, to be honest. I mean, you just can just look off in a distant area and be like, okay, I want to go over there. You can go over there, but you gotta run there. You can go over there, but you gotta run there. And you can go over there, but you gotta run over there. And then the really sad thing is once you're overweight and you don't, you got too much stuff in your inventory, which they give you so much stuff all the time that you can't get back to your ship. You gotta run back to your ship. So you gotta go all the way over there, and then you gotta come all the way back. Well, thanks for spawning on top of my head. I like seeing your eyeballs there, Andre. And it's just, I don't know if I really like the fact that they make me run everywhere. It's one of the things that I would like to do is just like mod in a vehicle of some kind. I really would like some kind of vehicle to go faster. I don't know. Followers will endlessly try to talk to you. They bug you to talk to you. It feels like Fallout 4 all over again with, oh man, what was his name? I can't even remember his name off the top of my head. Freaking another outpost needs your help. Another outpost needs your help. Another outpost needs your help. Did you know another outpost needs your help? Another outpost needs your help. So if your follower wants to talk to you, they will just endlessly ask you to talk to them all of the time, every single time they get an opportunity. Even when you're in the middle of dialogue with another NPC, even when you're flying your spaceship, even when you're in outer space. If they can say it, they do, and they say it all the time, even at the most awkward moments, like when you're in the middle of dialogue with another NPC. If you're in combat and you accidentally talk to them, and they are in one of these, hey, I want to talk to you next time you get a chance modes, you can't exit out of the conversation in the middle of combat, and you'll die. Literally, you just accidentally talk to them, and they're like, oh yeah, I wanted to talk to you about something serious today. Did you know that pancakes are not actually pancakes, and that they're actually a form of waffle? And you're like, we do this later? And they're like, no, this is serious. We need to talk about this now, as like a terrormorph is eating my head. Legit. Trying to think if there's anything else that I missed. I don't want to miss anything. I also don't want to go over everything 18 times or make this video 17 hours long, but I do want to be thorough in what I think about the game. One thing I feel like I need to talk about is mods. I think this game could be fixed relatively easy. A lot of the problems that I've talked about could be fixed with mods. The shipbuilding system, I think with a couple tweaks here and there, could be absolutely amazing. If they just made it so that you could bank the modules and put the modules onto other ships, if they set it up so that you could actually, access a lot of the stuff from a centralized location, maybe some sort of like mega outlet mall or something where you could go to and you could shop from all the vendors. They made it, I think, a little bit too difficult to do the shipbuilding. Even after like 12 hours straight of trying to learn how to do the shipbuilding, I still can't tell you where to get all the modules. I still can't direct you on you know, where to go to get everything, because I still haven't discovered all the places to go to get all the various modules and things that you can in the game. In fact, there's even some experimental ships that you can only get through certain quests, and they have experimental modules that you can only get through that particular ship in that particular quest. And so it comes down to really weird stuff. Like, for instance, this right here is a conduction grid module that is only obtainable through the Crimson Fleet quest. And if you don't do the Crimson Fleet quest, then you don't get access to the conduction module. And you can only put it on your ship one time during that quest. And after that, it's gone forever. This is also one of the pieces of this quest, which is called a comm spike. And if you don't do that quest and you don't get that particular item during that particular time, well, then it's just gone forever. And I've been unable to find any way to get access to these. I even tried to cheat in all the pieces and still couldn't get access to all of them, which is just hilarious. Now, this one can only be gotten at certain pirate vendors, and this one you can still get. But you cannot get these. And then these can also not be transferred between ships. So you're in a really odd situation where you can only use the same ship, right? So even if you do get that special research vehicle, that special experimental vehicle, the one that has all those really cool experimental modules on it, well, you can't bring your comm spike and you can't bring your conduction grid with you because they are stuck on the original ship that you put them on, which is kind of BS. Personally, I really would like to see the shipbuilding system just like almost completely overhauled, and a lot of things changed within it. Like, first off, the habitation modules are really strange in my opinion. I don't like the fact that the habitation modules, you can't see what's inside them. It's like you have to install it before you can really see what's inside the module, and so basically you just have to go waste a bunch of money throwing random modules onto your ship before you can really even know what the hell is in the doojanks. And you might think that I'm just joking, but no, I actually did it. I literally made a ship that has no other purpose other than to be my Franken ship that I literally just threw modules on repeatedly just to see what the modules would do. This is my hero editor ship, and I literally just threw modules in here, tons and tons and tons of modules, because I wanted to check them, go inside them, see what was in them, you know, like what kind of stuff was actually in the modules. And I have a whole document literally of all of the best modules that I go over in my Starship building video. So again, I know I said this at the beginning of the video, but if you're really interested in starship building, I really highly suggest you check out my starship building video. And if you have any questions, feel free to ask, because I have done more research into this than I probably should do ever into anything, and I had a lot of fun doing it. I'm not gonna lie, I had a lot of fun, and if you want to have that fun with me, that stream is up. It's actually called Starship Design. So if you go on my my YouTube channel and you look, you will see, let me see if I can pull this up real quick. You will see a live stream, and that live stream does say Starship Design. So if I go on here, you see this one right here is Day 8 Starship Design. And Day 8 Starship Design is literally all about Starship Design. It's all we do all day long is we just learn about Starship Design. We do everything we can possibly do to learn about Starship Design. So if you're interested in really digging into Starship Design, I suggest you check out this live stream, because we go over everything. We look at everything. We figure everything out. We test everything. We go into every module. We look at everything, and we make a list, and we check it twice, and we have fun with it. So, I think I've gone over everything that I can possibly go over about this game. It's already been about an hour and 8 minutes, and I wanted to be thorough. I wanted to be very thorough when I made this video. So, don't hate me for being thorough, because I feel like this game deserves a thorough review. What do I rate the game? Well, despite the fact that I've had a lot of fun with this game, there are a lot of problems. A lot of little things that have taken off little tick marks for me. The fact that the space exploration isn't really what was advertised. The fact that a lot of the planets are just barren nothings. The fact that a lot of the dungeons are just, like the same dungeon in different places. I don't know if I told you that, but I literally have gone into several dungeons, several like mining outposts, several places, and they were identical to the last one. Just the same exact place with the same exact items in the same exact spots. To the point where literally I walked in and I turned around because I knew there was credits sitting on the table, and there they were sitting on the table because that's where they were in the last dungeon. Things like the ship design being really good, but also being really frustrating because they did it in a very poor way. I feel like there's the hallmark of a good system there, but they messed it up by some really bad decisions. And all in all, if I take everything into account, all of the bad, along with all of the good, I feel like I have to give it around a 6.5. That's about my final rating for the game is a 6.5. But I will strongly say that I do feel like the majority of the issues with the game that I have deducted points for could be potentially fixed within the modding community. I think the modding community could completely overhaul the starship design and make it into 30 times better than it is right now. I think they could completely overhaul the outpost management so that it's 30 times better than it is right now. I think every single planet could be modded. Can you imagine this? Let me just say this all right off the top of my head, all right, as a couple ideas for what people could do with this game. In Skyrim, you had to be careful about what you modded because your mod might overlap with somebody else's, right? Well, imagine this. How many planets are there within this galaxy? How many freaking planets are there within this universe or this it's insane, right? To add them all up would be insane. A modder could pick one planet in one solar system and transform that planet into what they wanted. They could transform the whole planet into whatever they wanted and not affect any other part of the game. This game has more modding potential than any game I have ever seen in the past. There could be entire planets created by modders. There could be an overhaul of the starship system so you could make literally the Starship Enterprise if you want to, or freaking Death Stars. The size of the ships could be modded to be as big as you want. They could set up entire gauntlets where you could fight tons of spaceships all at one time and have tons of different battles. I see nearly infinite modding potential for this game, and I am not saying that the modders need to fix the game. What I'm saying is that this game, to me, represents a nearly infinite level of modding capability, and because it's based on the same engine as Skyrim, because it's based on the same engine as Fallout, and the modding community is already so heavily entrenched in those titles, I can't imagine that it would really be all that difficult for them to get in and start to play around with the inner workings of this game. Granted, they're going to have to learn some new things, like, for instance, the starship building and the outpost management, which wasn't in Fallout and Skyrim, but much of the core of that game is still here, since the engine is the same engine. And that just simply means that the modders are going to have a really easy time pulling in things. You know, do you guys even realize that they could probably even just take one of these planets and turn it into Skyrim? They could probably take one of these planets and turn it into freaking like Fallout. Like, you could literally have probably Fallout 4 within the game. I mean, they could put an entire city down on one of these planets or these moons or whatever. I know I'm hyping it up a lot, but honestly, I really do see some crazy potential for Fallout 4, Fallout 4, Skyrim, and Starfield mods, especially within this game. I feel like the scope of this game in general just allows for a lot more than some of the other games do, and also allows for less overlap too, which I think is very important. In Skyrim, you had to be careful about what you modded because another modder might have modded the same thing. But like I said earlier, modders could pick one planet. I mean, they could even have a repository somewhere where it's like, okay, modders, pick your planet. This is where you're going to do your mods, right? Nobody else gets to pick the same planet. Or you could even section off planets into quadrants and be like, you build over here, and you build over here, and you build over here. And that way, none of the mods are actually overlapping each other, and nothing interferes with one another. Which means you could have a freaking unicorn planet. Somebody could put Unicron in here if they wanted to. I mean, it would be friggin' amazing. I know I'm ranting at this point, but it's hard for me not to look at this game and see a nearly infinite potential in the modding community for Starfield. As always, I do appreciate you guys and gals watching my videos, even when it's just me ranting for like an hour and 15 minutes on Starfield. As always, keep watching.